Good evening everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Tekton Zoo. We got a lot of work to do today. As I said last week while we were building the entrance, we are building the zoo in franchise mode, so we need to get everything up and running as quickly as possible or we're going to go bankrupt. So what we're going to do today is build all the staff buildings that we need and all the guest facilities that we need to get the zoo up and running, ready for next week when we'll be putting the animals in. So let's jump straight into it. So here we are. First thing that we're building today is a staff facility. This is designed as a sort of modular piece that can be used for any staff buildings that you need. So I'll probably have quite a few of these around the zoo. This first one is going to have a staff room and then a keeper hut and a trade centre, and it's sort of tucked away around the side of the entrance so that it'll be behind the guests when they come into the zoo, so they won't really see it. And I want it to have the ability to be able to put different buildings in, so you can drop it in somewhere else in the zoo and then have maybe like 2 keeper huts and a staff room or a research centre. I'm not going to be building a research centre at this stage because as this is a part of a franchise, I've already researched quite a lot of the animals, and I've used, well, the first couple of animals that are going to go into the zoo have already been used in my previous zoo, so I don't need to do any research, and we need to save as much money as possible due to the whole franchise thing. This building is going to have like a little garden in it as well, just below where I'm building here, hence the glass. So they can sort of grow all the stuff, well not all the stuff, but some of the stuff that they need for the zoo, cuttings for plants around the zoo and things like that. I'm going with, for this building, a sort of like a miniature version of the entrance really. It's got the same sort of sweep to it and the same building materials that I intend to use pretty much throughout the zoo, so the white plaster and then some metal poles and glass. Those are the principal materials that I'll be building this zoo out of really. Later on we'll move on to some further staff buildings and then some guest buildings as well. You need, when you're playing franchise, to get the zoo, like I say, you need it up and running as quickly as you can get it really. Get some animals, get some staff facilities, get some guest facilities so that you can open the zoo and get guests in, and then they will have an incentive to arrive and an incentive, more importantly, to spend cash, because we're going to need quite a lot of it. And I think opening a franchise zoo is a bit like opening a business really. I feel like about 3/4 of them go bust within the first few years of the game. You really need to get it right straight away, because there's not a lot of room for error really when it comes to building them. Speaking of money, you can see in the bottom left the amount of money I have left, just shy of 50,000. I did delete the entrance to this zoo, which I think Frontier have just removed the ability to do, but it doesn't seem to have caused me any issues. It does get you some cash to begin with. I don't really see it as an exploit, because once you delete the entrance you've got to then build a new one and that costs about the same as you get from deleting it. So I'm not really sure what the issue is there. But anyway, I've rebuilt the entrance pads out in one of the car parks that you can see behind this building. So the 49,000 that we have left is rapidly diminishing. Now we need to get the staff buildings done and everything else, and then get some animals in before we run out of cash. The other staff buildings that will be coming after this are a quarantine and a vet surgery. I also won't be building the I don't even know what it's called, the mechanic research building. Not sure what it's called, but I've done all the research for that already, so there'd be no point in building that. Having a bit of a fight with the doors here, but we get there in the end. I've also seemed to have built the world's biggest ever staff sign. Not sure why I did that. I delete it later and replace it with something a bit more appropriate. I've used the this is sort of the top part of the entrance that's sort of sweeping over the top of this building. I just sort of copied that across because I really like that shape, and then put some nice little signs in. I love the little sign into the wall trick that you can do. I didn't realise that for, I don't know, like 3 months of building with all these really inappropriate wooden signs and Asian signs and all sorts of different signs everywhere, stinking up my zoo, looking crap. And then I saw it somewhere, can't remember where, probably would have been DeLadySigner or Pausley maybe, watching a video, and I was like, oh my god, you can put them into the wall and then you just see the text. That was definitely a game changer. Lots of plants going in as well, some terrain sculpting, which is always fun. Trying to build like a little shelf here for whatever these plants are, where they would grow, like cuttings I guess, in this greenhouse, and then move them out to the zoo to go potentially on top of some of the buildings. I want all the buildings in the zoo to have bio roofs. Idea being that the whole zoo will be solar powered, every roof will have planting on it, taking in carbon and breathing out some lovely oxygen all day, and offsetting some of the zoo's carbon footprint. So I'm a massive geek like that. And hiding a hose pipe in the wall as well. And then I felt like it should have some. They kind of look like I think these lights look like fly traps. I don't know if that counts as animal cruelty, killing as many flies as possible in the zoo, but I guess that would be helpful for restricting the spread of disease and things like that, and obviously keeping those plants healthy. I love this ladder. This is off the workshop. I said I might use a few workshop items for small detailing if somebody's already built something that looks great. I don't really want to spend hours fiddling about recreating it when I could just use theirs because they've kindly shared it. So this was by Vigoga on the workshop. Not sure if I've pronounced that right, but yeah, thanks for that. It's a great little piece. I did put that on some of the other buildings I built as well, but then I decided to go with roof hatches instead, which we will see a bit later. So I'm just finishing off the little greenhouse garden area now, and then there'll be some final detailing on the outside. I think I forgot to record putting the gutters on, but hey, you can probably live without seeing gutters being placed. Just changing the that sign that I wasn't happy with and making a nice new shape for the door frame as well, and then getting some staff paths in to stop the guests from getting into the staff areas. Bit of a struggle with the planting here, but again we get there in the end. And I want to bring the base around as well, so that sort of protects the plants from the guests. I've just realised I forgot to introduce myself, so I'm ZSH1985. Thank you so much for watching this. Please drop me a like, it will really help out the channel. And if you haven't already, subscribe, and then you can see all the future episodes when they're done, which at the moment is once a week, every Saturday night at 8 PM. Just finishing up the staff path. Then a drain, gotta have drains. And then finally, just finishing off this sign, and that's this building done. Next up we move to the other side of the entrance, where I'm going to build a medical facility. So again, this is something that we can drop into the zoo sort of here and there whenever it's required. It's going to have a vet surgery and a quarantine as well. You don't want to just have one quarantine in the zoo and then every time you get a new animal the staff are running miles to pick it up and get it back again. This building is actually based on a existing Tecton building that's still there today in Dudley Zoo. I think it's a cafe now. In fact, I think it's always been a cafe. I can't remember, I'd have to check. But yeah, it's a cool little building, very square, full of just lots of sort of cube shapes and poles, nice window ledge. I was going to build 2 of it, one for the vet surgery that we're building here, and then one for the quarantine. But then looking at the original building, which is, you know, a cafe, so it's got seating, etc., it's a lot longer than this. I realized it would look way better as one sort of rectangular building rather than 2 separate cubes. So then I joined them together, and I really like how it came out. In the end, it looks much better like that. And like I say, it's the whole plaster standing in for concrete, and then the poles is a real big part of the Tecton aesthetic. So this is the first building in the zoo that's actually based on a Tecton building rather than my own interpretation of their style. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I quite like it. It is weird that it's just sort of cubes and rectangles. Doesn't really sound that exciting, but it does actually look pretty satisfying when it's done. I really need to go to Dudley Zoo. I've never been, and all the, like I said in the last episode, all the stuff that Tekton built is grade 1 listed, so it's all still there in the zoo today, although very few of them have any animals or anything in there, just sort of monuments now. But this, like I say, is still in use as a restaurant or a cafe or some sort of food place. I don't know if I'm going to have like a big restaurant in this zoo. Maybe not. I think they built a few in Dudley Zoo, so I'll have to check out some of the others and possibly base the large restaurant on that. But all the sort of rather than putting all the food and drink into one giant restaurant, in this zoo there's going to be little kiosks everywhere, so it sort of fits in with the Planet Zoo style of having little boxy things here and there, rather than big buildings with lots of stuff in, which I quite like, especially in this zoo, because in Dudley Zoo, Tekton built kiosks which were little self-contained units, which is what the next build is going to be based on. Again, they just sort of sit there now. They're not used because they're open, so I don't think it's allowed for health and safety and stuff to be serving food and drink from that kind of environment. But I like the look of them, and I built a sort of something based on those, which we can then use to just dot around the zoo. So, I mean, the guests are so picky in this game. They are a nightmare. We all know it. So it's really good to be able to just drop, you know, some food or some drink in somewhere where people are whinging, as they do. So yeah, I definitely wanted everything in the zoo to be sort of modular. Just put a nice little roof in here to join up the 2 buildings, and then some final detailing, and then the medical facility is done. And we'll move on to those kiosks next. Should mention as well, the roof hatches that you can see there are another workshop item. They're from the absolute genius that is Creative Games. Check them out if you haven't already. Their builds are just absolutely mind-blowing. Probably the craziest and best builds that I've seen in Planet Zoo. There'll be a link in the description for them. I wanted to put an inside in as well. You won't really be able to see it, but just simple. Need some more fonts in this game, seriously. This one, it looks alright. There we go. So when you come through the entrance in the zoo, there's going to be a big circular courtyard, really big circular courtyard with the main, well not the main, but the first big habitat that you see, which we may be building next episode. And then some exhibits which are really important for getting guests in early on in the life of the zoo. And then loads of guest facilities as well. So we're going to start with an info kiosk, information centre, whatever they're called, a gift shop to get them spending their cash, and a food place and a drink place, probably just gulpy teeth beef. Not very ecological to be selling beef in the zoo, but you know, vegetarian, vegan options are pretty hard to find at Planet Zoo, so I've gone with that. So this is based on what I was talking about in Dudley Zoo, this kiosk. It's based on, it's not exactly the same as the original, it's quite a different shape, but I wanted to incorporate the info kiosk or any of the 4x4 guest facilities. So this is designed that you can just drop any guest facility in it and it'll do nicely, it'll fit properly. Spent a lot of time on the roof on this, and then realised if I just built a different roof and covered it up, that'd look way better. It's tricky working with these shapes, but I'd forgotten that I was going to put in a sort of canopy over the top of it anyway, so don't know why I spent so long trying to build this roof, because you can't even see it. Bit of a waste of time. Might go into some custom signs for these as well, but for the moment I'm just using the in-game font. I think the what is it called, Noto Sans font, the sort of second Planet Zoo font, actually works really well for this zoo. It matches the not quite exactly, but pretty close to the font that Tecton used for all their designs, so it's not a great need for loads of custom signs. You can pretty much get away with using that most of the time, but I will do some, just an excuse to use Photoshop, which is always fun. Went through a few different colour schemes as well, but I eventually decided that white with an orange highlight was the way to go, but everything's blue for a bit until I realised that it'll look way better if it wasn't. That little aquatic mural pops up as well and is then disposed of because I didn't like it. I wanted to have a different plant in the roof of each one of these kiosks as well. Although I don't think I've got round to doing that yet. I think they're all the same mostly. I didn't like the shadow either, so we put some lights in that run all day, so that really brightens up the logo, telling the guests what's there, and getting them to come in and spend their cash. So then we just copy that across to this is a gift shop. No real changes. The design's not complete here. I wasn't really happy with it. I was happy with the basics, not really happy with the look. I was kind of getting stuck, so I thought I'd just continue on and just do the sort of basic work of copying this across to the 4 different shops and then come back and finish off the detailing later. And I'm glad I did, because it looks a lot better once the final few bits have been done. And you can see them better in the cinematics at the end. Obviously, more poles. And then this is, I think, when I finally realised it should just be white at the bottom. We're going to get some plants in there as well. This big green space you see here is the space for the central habitat, which we're going to be building there, which should be like the first thing the guests see when they come in. It's going to be pretty big. And then behind it, we've got the food and drink to keep these greedy little buggers happy. Again, just copying across what we've done before in the modular design. Put some signs in as well for the, for which shop it is. I'm not 100% sure about these. They're there at the moment, so they may or may not stay there. Then put a little base in, which ties it in nicely, and finally the plants. I'll leave you to enjoy the cinematics. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week. Bye.